everybody, and welcome to WOOF.
Television that's gone to the dogs?
It's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it is. It is.
So,
Wait, we're not dogs.
shit. This is...
Wrong.
Yeah, we need to... That's better. Oh. Yeah, that was natural.
Much better.
Okay.
Welcome to All Directions Podcast.
Hello. How do you do?
We're actually on camera this time.
We are actually on camera this time. We thought we'd give it a try and see how this went.
A lot of difficulties this past 2 weeks.
You know what? I think we are encountering difficulties every time we decide that we're going to do the All Directions podcast. Well, anything. Yeah, that would be correct.
Although, would it be All Directions Podcast without any kind of difficulties?
Not really. I mean, well, we pretty much started the last episode of the podcast with the exact same story of how much of a pain in the arse it is to actually try and do a podcast. Which it really shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. No.
It shouldn't be this difficult.
Especially with our experience.
Put that experience, air quotes, put that lightly.
Put that in post.
We've got 17 failed attempts at podcasts throughout
17?
our lifetime careers.
Is that you coming up with 17 just because you can't think of the actual number again?
Again.
I
don't know what you're referring to, Christopher.
Oh, just nothing. Don't, never mind, people. It's all good.
No. It's just, if you want to explain yourself, I don't.
Well, we were doing audio tests, and my dear cousin here said that we had 17 failures in trying to record audio. So originally I was like, no, we've only done 7 today that have failed. And then I came to the conclusion that since we've been doing other stuff as well as getting ready for the podcast, the assumption that he also meant the other stuff that we were doing, which is coming. Not anytime soon, but it's coming. Although, relatively speaking, would you actually say it's coming soon?
We're aiming for it to be coming soon.
Aiming.
Yes, that's how I would put it. But as you would put it with the failed audio attempts, the mathematics behind such was rather convoluted.
Which apparently is wrong.
Well, not in that context.
Right.
Just in pretty much every other context you've ever used that word for.
Right.
So,
I mean, it just comes out the mouth.
It still relatively works in a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just if someone didn't quite understand the context you meant it in, then they'll have a completely different mindset.
Well, I think usually when you listen to a person talk about anything, really, you've always got that context. Unless the other person is in a totally different mindset in another world. Well,
yeah, if this is this person's very first time ever visiting planet Earth, for example, they're not going to understand our context and our mindset of how we think and what our words even mean.
Yeah.
So never mind the word convoluted, they're just not going to have a bloody clue what you're saying in the first place.
Or they could take it in totally the right... Contextually, no, it wouldn't be the right manner, but they could take it just literally everything you say.
Maybe if all the hand symbols and everything that we do is the same for them, then they'll actually be able to figure out what it is we're saying just through hand motion alone. Or the universal language of sign language might be applicable.
Is sign language really universal?
Yeah, there is no... every language has the exact same symbols for everything in sign language.
I suppose, but there's still context behind what you're saying.
Well, think about it. So, plenty of languages out there, right? English, Spanish, Italian, German, you name it. There's languages for it, right? Have you ever learned how to do Spanish sign language?
No.
Have you ever learned how to do Italian sign language?
I haven't learned any sign languages, to be honest.
I've learned sign language before in the past. I know what these mean. Not this specifically, just these.
You mean for your ABCs?
Well, they're just your vowels.
Right.
But that's pretty much about it.
Yeah.
That's all I remember.
Right.
And then there was obviously the one that everyone knew, which was the... But that's not really sign language. I mean, come on.
Oh, I see you, right?
No, I
chin you.
I chin you.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's really bad.
That was bad, but it was actually... it was Robert that had come up with that. Friend Robert from back in the school days.
Back in the school days?
Back in the school days, long time ago.
Right. Haven't seen him since.
I don't know. So it seems like we haven't seen him since. You know.
Rob, if you're watching, hello.
Hello, Robert. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah.
How do you do?
Where's the D&D that we were promised? I know it's done. You said it was.
That was like many years ago.
No, it was only like what? 2 years ago?
That was more than 2 years
More than
ago.
two?
It was well, that would have had to have been about the 4-year mark.
4-year mark?
Yeah,
Right,
probably.
right.
So I think I was back in college.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it must have been longer if I was back in college then. Yeah, 4 or 5 years anyway.
All right. Okay.
So.
Well, it's been done for 4 or 5 years, and I don't know if he still needs play testing it.
Oh, no one knows what he's up to these days.
He's off
Secret.
gallivanting elsewhere now.
Out in the cold, cold world somewhere.
And we're in here, warm, and it's raining outside.
Well, you know, that's just British weather for you, to be honest with you.
Oh, British weather.
And boy, have we had British weather. And
We
this
had
week.
storm winds,
We had storm winds.
which was supposed to be a hurricane.
We had hurricanes,
Mhm.
which I'm not to make light of it, but yeah, that's what they said it was,
Yeah.
and wasn't really very hurricaney.
No, I managed to get home fine.
It was more. It was relative. It was quite a light breeze,
Yeah.
really, compared to what we're actually used to when it
Yeah.
gets to wind.
I mean,
Yeah.
what was it? The following day, the wind picked up slightly.
Slightly, it did pick
Slightly.
up, yes, but we did have a day of the apocalypse, pretty much.
Yeah.
Red skies.
We were going to die, and if we're not, in fact, already dead already. And if we are, the afterlife is pretty boring.
Sun was pretty much like burning through the sky, through the clouds, calling it Red October because of the sun. That's relevant, by the way. Keep your eye out for remember the whole red sun thing, because that's going to crop up again sometime later down the line.
That's if we don't decide to bin it later on.
If we don't decide to bin it later on, but I don't think we will. I think it's definitely going to make its appearance, so that'll be a little timestamp for you when you do see its return.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Mm.
So,
Hi.
I think we had a few, 1 or 2 topics that we were going to bring up today.
We don't have as many as what we had in the previous podcast, but it's enough.
Yeah, it's enough. Well, to be fair, this episode of the podcast is going to be a bit shorter this time around. Just with we're trial running the whole video idea, we're just going to see how that goes.
Yeah.
And if it continues to go well, at some point we might bring it back to a 2-hour length.
Mm.
But as of this moment in time, the All Directions podcast is a 1-hour podcast.
Yeah.
Until further notice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, although if we want to add some extra bits of I think
we don't have to hit the 1-hour mark on the dot.
Yeah.
You know, there's room.
Yeah.
To
That's the
maneuver.
thing. If you're doing YouTube content, don't stick to a 10-minute thing or like any length of time. You can have a little bit of leeway unless you're like doing some like advertisement work or something. Then you have to really, really be dead on.
To be honest with you, if you're going to do YouTube stuff, just upload whatever length video you want to
Pretty
upload.
much.
Provided you know it isn't like so ridiculously long that it's just not going to be possible to upload it in the first place.
Mm.
Then you should be fine.
Then again, I've seen like YouTube videos that are like 24 hours, a week's length of like repetitive crap.
Yeah, but I think YouTube put an end to that now. So those old videos are still allowed up there.
Yeah.
But you're no longer allowed to upload that length of video anymore. And I don't know that they would ever let you upload a video that's literally a year in length. So probably don't like just shoot an ongoing video that's like a year long.
Unless it's live stream, in which case it might be okay.
You might struggle though if you're going to live stream for an entire year.
You better have a good internet provider.
Good internet provider. I would take, some eat lots of sugar, drink lots of energy drinks, not
Carbs.
all that, because you're going to get tired by like the 3rd month, at least.
Especially if they're looking around a camera like we've got.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know how much looking around of a camera you're going to be doing if you're just live streaming 24/7 for a full year.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends. If you're live streaming a vlog, it's a really long vlog, though.
Actually, you couldn't do that because then you run into the issues of things like weather outside, especially if you're outside. And if your phone gets wet, or whatever you get, or whatever equipment you're actually using gets wet, you're most likely going to be pretty effed, especially if it's older equipment.
Well, there's going to be at least 124 hours within that year-long content that isn't that great.
Yeah.
But that just means if people ever go back to rewatching the content, they can just skip over that 24 hours because maybe every other day is amazing.
True.
So you have that kind of range, but there's not many places these days that allow you to upload a video of that length.
Oh, yeah.
So,
although I don't know about Twitch. Because I haven't looked into that.
I'm sure they've got a cap.
They probably do have a cap.
You're allowed to... and I've not seen one that's like capped at 2 years and 5 months or anything. So
I think people have a hard enough time just taking like a picture every day for a year.
Yeah, I mean we have a hard enough time just setting up for something that has to go on for an hour.
Yeah.
So imagine if we were doing something that was like, if we tried to do like a 24-hour thing again, and actually failed to do.
Yeah.
We didn't do too bad.
Not too bad.
I think we got 8 hours out of that.
8 hours, yeah.
But, yeah. So, just, I guess, an update then, before we crack on with the main topics. If you actually did watch the first episode, or if you go back to watch and you check that timestamp on it, you'll notice that there's quite a gap of time between episode 1 of the podcast and this episode. That's basically, that is on us.
Yeah.
Granted, we did say that would be another one up the following week, or in a fortnight's time, I think we said.
Yeah, fortnights.
I think there's one episode that we did, it's been lost. I think the file got corrupted or something, which is basically why we never really got to upload that one. But either way, I mean, there was a lot of problems with that one in the first place, so it probably wouldn't have been very good.
Yeah.
But now, especially with the trial run, if we're doing video, the plan is that an episode of this podcast will come up every Friday, every week from here on out.
Yeah.
So that should be lovely.
And we're recording the previous day, so Thursday recording, hopefully, and Friday upload. Assuming your internet also plays ball.
My internet should be just fine. I mean, working on a pretty steady system right now. So I think everything should be provided I actually, render it all out correctly this time round, unlike last time. First time round, I did it. I was a little rusty. It'd been a while. It was going to take about over 24 hours, basically, to upload a 2-hour video. And then I realized, like, about 20 hours into that I'd formatted it to the wrong file type. And so, yeah, I basically cancelled that and re-rendered the whole thing. And it uploaded in about less than 10 minutes. So that's a difference it can make, really.
Do you remember what that file type was?
What would it have been? I do not. It was pretty much a very uncompressed file format, though. And one that doesn't help with size either. I mean, it was taking up a lot of space on my computer anyway.
Couldn't be
so
WMV, could it?
No, it wasn't WMV. That would have been much smaller than what the final was. I think it was one of the Apple file formats that I'd rendered it out to at the time.
Fucking Apple.
Fucking Apple.
You're good at making stuff, but your company's becoming a bit of a prick.
You always becoming a bit of a pain in the arse with certain things.
Although they did do a good thing, which you mentioned the other day, and you can now drag and drop your files into your computer.
Yeah, I've not actually given that a try, but one of the latest iOS updates on the Apple allows you to drag and drop your files from your phone to the computer and vice versa. So forth. Find it a bit weird that it's done via an app on the phone, as opposed to just directly through like the settings, like a lot of other phones would allow you to do. But that's the restrictions you get with Apple phones, iPhones.
So I think that's another thing content creators can take away. If you want to If you want just a smooth experience and you've only got a phone to record from, make sure it's an Android.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Apple's cameras are pretty decent.
Yeah.
Well, Androids are as well. I mean, it just depends on what you're going for. If you want a phone where you've got all the control in the world over it, you're really tech heavy and everything, then you really don't want to be going with an Apple phone because you've just got all those restrictions on you. If you just want a phone that you can just use as a phone, get applications on it, you don't give a damn about any of that computer stuff, then there's really nothing wrong with getting an Apple product phone other than the price.
Mm-hmm. Which, Apple, your phones and your computers aren't worth as much as you say they are.
No, they are not.
I mean, fair enough that they're trying to make it so that it's, what would you call it? A luxury device. Fair enough. But you gotta make sure that it is literally a luxury device and not something that for example, I could put together I could put together a computer with Linux and whatnot, and it will either run similarly or better than any Apple products right now, and it'll cost less.
I mean, I just think for the price especially, you should really have a lot more control over that device. And for as much as I'm shitting all over the Apple product, I myself have an iPhone.
Oh, yeah.
So, what does that say about me?
You like giving constructive criticism.
I can roll with that.
Yeah.
I can roll with that, yeah.
I mean, constructive criticism is meant to be constructive, so if it's a case where Apple... Hello, Apple, in case you're watching. If it's a case when you're watching, take what we say not lightly, but listen to what we say.
Yeah, I can roll with that.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking of things that not many people are fond of and are happy with, that will lead us right into the very first thing that we were going to talk about today, which is a little thing that's going around at the moment. It's been around for a while.
Since actually it's been around since apps became a proper thing on the phones, right?
I think phone games, mobile games, especially smartphone applications, was the start of it.
Yeah.
And then video games started getting into it. And just for context, the thing we're talking about is microtransactions. Big topic going around at the moment.
Yeah. Shadow War. Bad developers.
Actually heard that even the new Assassin's Creed game is relatively going to have a form of microtransactions in it. Probably pretty much every game coming out this year, especially every AAA title game coming out this year, will probably have microtransactions in it.
Yeah.
And loot boxes and potentially pay-to-win systems.
Oh yeah, definitely pay-to-win. There's been too many games that have came out that are entirely pay-to-win. I mean, fair enough if you got the money for it, and you are what the companies call a whale. I mean, I actually feel... If it was the case where I developed a game and it had microtransactions, but I also made people aware of it, and a whale came along and just spent all the money, thank you very much. But I think ethically it's not correct.
Well, to stick on, I guess, the negative side of it at least, I kind of agree about it not being right.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be in games in the first place, right? The thing with microtransactions especially is the amount of money that you're paying for these games in the first place. You're sometimes paying 50 quid, 60 quid, and up, depending on if you're getting a gold edition or a collector's edition or a super special high res ultimate one-time only edition. Some bloody games, that'll charge you over 120 quid just for these special editions. Yeah. And yet they still have microtransactions. They're still asking you for money. And I get it. I get that, the game developers need to find other ways, potentially, of earning a bit of extra money outside of just selling the base game. But when you're sort of charging what could be considered a premium level price, for a form of entertainment, to then continue to try and bombard you with asking you and requesting you for money, especially if it's something that's going to give you the edge in the game as well. It can be sort of just pushing it a bit far. And unlike, back in the day where you just got to actually enjoy a game. Once you had the game, it was your game. You didn't have to think about spending any more money on it. That was it, done.
Unless they release something like Darkness Castle.
Unless they release like another version of the game later on down the line.
Yeah.
Or, they fool you into buying like a remaster of the game for another console.
Skyrim.
Yeah. I will tend to critique people that fall for the trap. But I will admit there is at least once or twice where I have bought into it as well, and actually went and bought a remaster of a game, despite the fact that I owned all of those games on a console that I owned still. So I was like, why am I doing this? But I'm like, but it looks so much nicer. So that's why. So any other thoughts on the negative side, or have you got anything else to say? Because I've got a few more things to say about microtransactions.
I agree with the argument of fair enough, the developers need more money, but if it's a case where the game is done and they're profiting from it already, I don't see any need for microtransactions, because you still have to develop those systems for microtransactions to actually work, and that takes developer time. That takes testing. Fair enough, it might be a different system entirely. Maybe you open up a web page and that's how you do it, but it still takes that development time away from what could actually be worked on, which is the game. And then they could, I don't want to say charge a cheaper price, but maybe give something else in return.
Well, you see, for me, I think it's just, like I said, I understand the purpose behind what they're doing, which is obviously money. But I get the mentality and I get the situation that they're in. It's one, it might not always be the game developer's decision to put a microtransaction system into the game. It might be the actual ultimate, like the game studio that's decided that they want microtransactions in the game, because obviously it just means more money. But also, I remember hearing something, this was a few years back, about how games actually aren't as profitable as we think that they are. A lot of them actually, even though they sell millions and millions of copies, still actually end up losing money. And so I think that's why games started more heavily investing into stuff like microtransactions, because like this is a way that outside of the base game, we can get a bit more money back. Because at the same time, you've got to think, we love to hate the game studios or the movie studios or whoever it is, but there's still people that have worked really hard, spent a lot of time, like 3-4 years, developing something, putting a lot of hard work into it. And so if it ends up being the case where, despite the fact loads of people have bought this, they still end up ultimately losing money for it, which means there's a chance that that particular development studio might get the sack, that team might get fired. There's that kind of risk involved, as is there with any form of media, really. So it's them just trying to come up with different things. Now, personally, I do think a lot of people are going about it the wrong way, though. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I've heard people basically saying that they're going to boycott games that have microtransactions in them. Now, there are people that are intentionally not going to buy Shadow of War just for the fact that it has microtransactions in it.
I think that might be slightly justified with Shadow of War, though. Mainly because, and the developers have said this, they said that they put the microtransactions in the game, but when they were doing the tests for the game, they turned them off.
Right.
So the game's balanced by itself, but they didn't test the balancing system of the game with the microtransactions actually enabled.
Well, yeah, but I think they already know what people are going to be able to acquire from it. And at the end of the day, for people who, have to go to work every single day, they don't have time to put hours and hours and hours into these games, but they still want to have the experience of getting to play the game. They want to play through the story. If they just put a bit of money in, pay for this fee, it helps them essentially be able to skip spending 10 hours collecting all this stuff so that they can have this one thing, or 10 hours getting to this section. Right. It just means it can speed up, and it means they don't have to, especially spend 10 years trying to get to the same place as it would take somebody else 2 weeks, because they've got the time to play the game and somebody else has no time whatsoever.
To me, that's kind of like saying, I want to finish Skyrim within 3 hours because I've got to get to work in the next. I've got to get to work, and I got to get to work within like 4. Finish Skyrim within 3 hours, and be like, oh, I'll pay them £20 or $20, whatever, in order to get the best equipment, the best saber, the best armor. But you can circumvent that just by using the console commands. Just find the item ID that you want, and you can easily get through the game and fly through it.
Right.
So get the full experience.
Assuming that it's a game where you can just put in the console commands for.
Well, even if it's not console commands, because I'm pretty sure they haven't got those enabled on consoles right now, especially with Special Edition. Cheats.
If there's cheats.
There should be cheats.
But the point is, it's the game developers don't necessarily want you to just rush and skip through the game, which is, to be honest with you, why a lot of games don't really have cheats anymore. And so that, if you want to rush through the game, there's a fee that you have to pay for that. But we're still going to allow you the ability to do so. So yeah, it sucks that the game's still asking us for money. But at the same time, say if somebody's been looking forward to a game coming out for ages, but they're going to go on a business trip in at the end of the week or in 2 weeks' time, that's going to have them away for months, and they can't take any of that game stuff with them because they're going to be busy all the time. They're never going to have the chance to play it. So they're like, damn it, I've really been looking forward to this game. It's going to take so long to play through this game. I'm not going to have time to really experience anything of it. If I could sort of just get the bit of the game that I want to experience within these 2 weeks, I'll be happy, and then I can come back to the game when I get back. Then, yeah, okay, I'll put a little bit of money to it, and that'll help me get to the bit of the game I want to get to where I feel comfortable leaving it for 6 months or something.
But then are you really getting the full experience of the game?
But even so, there might be something like Skyrim's not a great example of this, but a game where its core essential is the story. You might not be interested in you might like the idea of exploring and you might want to be able to do all this other stuff, but if you don't have time for it and your main focus is you want to know what happens in the story of this game, that's your main focus. You're like, if I can at least get to the quarter mark or the halfway mark, or at least finish the game before I have to not be able to play this, or before I run out of time essentially to play this game, and then by putting a bit of money in, I can actually get the game finished in this amount of time, as opposed to taking us 6 months to finish the game instead. Something like microtransactions is good for that. So that's one of my thoughts on it. But I kind of really I don't understand the mentality. I get that you think if you're going to boycott the game because it's got microtransactions in it, it's like, well, by doing that, I'm telling the developers that I don't like microtransactions and I will not buy your games until you stop putting microtransactions in. But at the same time, you're not really telling the developers that that's the reason you're not getting the game. All you're telling them is that you don't like the game. If they don't get money for a game, they don't specify what it is that you didn't like about it. They just think, oh, they didn't like the game, because money's what talks. So instead, you still go ahead and buy the game. If it's a game you want to play, don't just go and buy a game because, there's a game out there.
Unless you're a sadist.
Yeah. But if it's a game you wanted to play, you really, really want to play, and you're choosing not to just because of microtransactions, I don't get that, because you could just as easily play the bloody game and not get any of the microtransactions. Yeah. I've played plenty of games that have microtransaction menus in them, and I've never once went onto the microtransactions menu. I actually, but I'll tell you, I have went onto the menu, but to actually look at it to see what it is that it has on offer, and I've never bought a microtransaction in my life.
Yeah.
But I actually have to go looking for the menu. So if I'm not intentionally looking for the microtransaction menu, I never accidentally come across it or feel like the game's trying to push us into the microtransaction menu. So I'm like, if you don't like microtransactions, just don't buy microtransactions. Yeah. Just don't go onto the menu. And if everybody just stays off of the microtransactions page, then game developers will say, oh, well, nobody buys microtransactions, so what's the point we're putting in the game? It's just more time and more effort for something that we're not earning any money from. That's how you tell the developers that you don't like microtransactions. Yes, complain about it, but also just kind of fucking ignore it.
Yeah. Although, I'll go back to Skyrim, because as we know, that Skyrim now has mods in it, and from what I hear is the loading screens for Fallout 4 and now Skyrim show, basically advertise that there's a mod for such and such.
Right.
So, fair enough, you can have microtransactions, and I like the idea of actually having to go and look for the microtransaction stuff, because then it can be just out my view.
Yeah.
But if you do have microtransactions in the game, either own it, because I could give a good example of Paladins, and they do have microtransactions, but it's mainly for like cosmetic stuff. You'll never get any. I haven't found anything in Paladins that would even suggest buying like a weapon and it's got different stats to another.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to go down the route of like, we're going to be a game and we're definitely going to have microtransactions, just like I don't even know how to put it. It's like, I'll go back to Paladins again. And it's like you can buy there's an in-game currency like there is with like plenty of other games like Warcraft. And you can only get this currency via spending real-life money. Fair enough. But you can unlock all the characters via the in-game money that you get already. You'll take longer. You can get all the characters at once for a price, in UK it's $15.99, but then you also get all the characters then on. Or you can just get the individual characters by microtransactions. So I think it's like... And Paladins might be the case where it's like, oh, okay, it's like an arcadey shooter, objective-based game. Bad.
Continue with that.
Yeah, so if you're going to have, essentially what I'm trying to say, if you're going to have microtransactions, either have it so that you have to go and find it, or have it so it's like, you make people aware, but it's not a requirement for anything at all.
Yeah.
Cosmetics is probably the best way I would say cosmetics is probably the only thing I would ever spend or even consider spending on microtransactions with.
I mean, I think I agree with you on that. The point in which I would agree with people on the idea of boycotting a game because of microtransactions was if the game really tried to push it on you. Like what mobile games do. Mobile games really try to push microtransactions on you. So, yeah, that mentality then I understand. And if it's a case where the game is filled with stuff that's microtransaction exclusive, where you cannot possibly get this in-game without paying using microtransactions first of all, then I understand that, because it's like, well, why shouldn't I get the full experience of the game without having to spend extra money? I've spent 50 quid on it, I've spent 60 quid on it. I should get the entire game. I shouldn't have to pay extra money for this extra little piece of content. So then I get that mentality. But when it's a game where it's fully balanced without microtransactions whatsoever, you have everything that's in the microtransaction section is in the actual game itself, that you can get it naturally anyway, you just have to spend a lot more time to do it. That's when I don't understand the mentality, because at that point I'm like, well, you're not missing out on anything if you don't use microtransactions. You're still getting everything that's in the game. Everything that's on that microtransaction list is there in-game anyway, and you can find it. Just some people want to pay so that they get it a bit faster. Why does that matter to you? So what if they get through the game faster than you do? You had a better experience with the game. So I don't really understand the mentality of, like I said, boycotting the game. As long as the game isn't pushing it on you and isn't saying, sorry, no, you can't play this level. You can't do this in the game. You can't play as this character. You can't have this weapon without giving us extra money. Then I honestly don't really see the problem in microtransactions. I think if we all just really ignore it and forget about microtransactions, yes, we can whinge about it every now and then, but not to the point where we're like, I'm just not going to buy this game just because it's got microtransactions. I think they'll sharp go away.
I don't think they'll go away. I don't think they'll go away because we're taking in consideration a game that has finished development. Mm-hmm. But what in the case of I'll say Warcraft. What in the case of Warcraft that still has ongoing development and is still going somewhere? Mm-hmm. What would you say? I don't want to go as far as you can't go to this area or anything. Actually, that's usually true about Warcraft, especially by the older editions. But yeah, what in the case of a game that's still being developed, they need the money to continue developing, and but they give you access and they do stuff like they make you wait for an item for an hour.
Yeah, well, first off, I think Warcraft might be a bad example.
Yeah.
But I'm going to continue with the example of Warcraft and why I don't think it would matter so much for them.
Yeah.
You see, if you're playing Warcraft for free, right? Does Warcraft have a free to play now?
It has a free to play system where you need a certain amount of gold. I think you get 30 days. I believe originally the gold price for that was 500.
Right.
But it's the case where it's the value of the essentially free to play method is determined by how many people have been getting it. So it's in-game economy based.
Right. Well, okay. Well, let's just work off the assumption that it's free to play, right? Like a full-on free-to-play, but obviously very restricted in it. In that scenario, then I think restricting an area without you paying a bit of money, I think that's fair game, right? I mean, granted, if I was playing the game, I wouldn't appreciate it at the time, but looking at it from an outside perspective, I think it's it's all right. Just because you're playing this game for free anyway, so you're getting a lot more of the game than what you really should be allowed to be getting in the first place. So it's fair for them to ask you for money. But another reason why I don't think Warcraft would ever really have this as a problem anyway is because it's subscription based in the first place. So the Warcraft developers are always getting money from their players because their players are essentially paying for that game every single month. So I can't really see microtransactions ever really being a problem. But just to clarify, I'm not really saying that I think microtransactions are going to disappear in next year or in 2 years' time. I mean, there's going to be a while down the road before they disappear, unfortunately. It might be 10 years or something. It might be a bit longer. But if everybody just stops using them, if for a full year or something, nobody touched a single microtransaction, game developers will be like, okay, are we doing something wrong? Then you'll either go one of two ways. They'll either look into maybe finding an alternative solution, and which inevitably will stop microtransactions altogether, or unfortunately they'll start pushing exclusive things into microtransactions, which case is when you start boycotting the game. And then that'll stop them altogether, because if you fully then stop buying the game, after they've made a change like that, then they know for a fact that's the reason you're not buying the game anymore. And so then that'll put a stop to that as well.
So I'll throw out another example of a game that I've been suggesting to Mr. here that we play. I was going to say Warcraft again. Of Warframe, which is an entirely free-to-play game.
Yeah.
And their main source of income is microtransactions.
Okay. But it's a free-to-play game. So there's absolutely nothing, as far as I'm concerned, if it's a free-to-play game, you don't have to spend any money whatsoever to actually play the game.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with them then putting something like microtransactions in the game, because they need some way of making money. They're putting a lot of work into games like these.
Oh yeah, and Warframe, it's a small studio.
Is not exactly a game that visually or quality-wise should be a free game.
Oh yeah,
that should be a game you have to pay for. But it's not. It's free. So I think it's perfectly acceptable that it has something along the lines of microtransactions in that game. It's just when you go into 50 quid, 60 quid, 100 quid, then, it's like, come on, guys. We've already give you our money.
But then what kind of a price point do you put on a game like Warframe for what would you call it? like a package of like a skin, some in-game loot, that kind of deal. What kind of price point do you stop that at? Because I believe, and I'm not harping on Warframe for this, because fair dues, the game is pretty fucking good. Especially with it being a free game. Thank you, developers. Although I can't play right now, we're playing Survival out because my system's really bad. But regardless, I still like the game. At what point do you say something like, we limit the amount of in-game currency that we give for this price point to this? Because I think the most money you can get for like a package on Steam, and you get like a bunch of in-game loot and whatnot.
Right.
No, sorry, not in-game loot. In-game money. Is like £129, right. Something like that. And it you know, you've got tiers. You've got your $5.99, $7.99 kind of deal, and then it goes to like £129, something like that.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously, with the fact that I don't really play the game, struggling to put context to some of the things you're saying. So why don't you help me out by answering your own question first,
okay.
And then I'll throw my thoughts, my 2 pence in.
Well, in the case where you do have an in-game currency, I think it's really hard to balance that sweet spot of I'm getting this, I think this is a good price, I feel good about buying this. In the case of Warframe, where I believe it's platinum or plat, is the exclusive currency that you can get. It's a little weird because you can just go and get plat via just giving some money away. But then there's the case where there's also an in-game economy of selling like items and blueprints and stuff, and selling various other things, where you can get plat that way. So it's like you can't take the free to play option of trading, which I think thus far I've only made like 20 plat, which is really low. Which actually becomes plat becomes a requirement very early on in game, in my eyes, mainly because in order to progress in Warframe, you have to level up. And to do that, you have to go and grind to get gear and Warframes, which take time to actually build, unless you want to give plat. And you also have to buy slots and stuff. There, you have a limited amount of Warframe slots, which I believe is 2 to begin with, which are your default and then your secondary. And then you have, I think, like 15. I'm lowballing because I haven't played in a while. Like maybe 20 slots for like your primary, your secondary, and your melee weapon, which I believe all share the same space. Which then you also, to get more space, you still have to pay with plat.
So I guess to sort of broaden out the question a bit. So you're basically like referring to, in terms of microtransactions, like a price point for how much real money you give versus,
for how much you get in return.
Then how much in-game currency you get in return. Well, I guess my thoughts on that, I mean, sometimes they're the microtransactions that I really don't like, and they tend to be the most common ones above all.
Yeah.
But I would say, I think the highest one I've ever seen is 100 quid. And I think you got like 10 grand in terms of in-game currency. But for the game that it was for, I'm pretty sure that was like more money than you really needed in the game anyway. Which, damn right, considering you just give a bloody 100 quid, that's more than the actual game was. So, I mean, really, I think you're getting a bit cheeky if you start asking for more than 100 quid in terms of microtransaction stuff. But I think if someone is actually willing to pay that much for a microtransaction, then the amount they should get back in return obviously should be a lot more than 100 in-game currency or whatever. It should probably be something that they're not going to be able to really just, I don't know, like spend in an hour or something. You know, it should be an amount of money that is going to last them a good period. Maybe in a game like Warframe or whatever, where it's ongoing consistently, same like with Warcraft and so on and so forth. Maybe not an amount of money that's going to last you forever.
No, it won't last you forever.
You know, because then that's a bargain. At that point.
Because I believe the package that you get from I can't remember what else to call it. I'm just going to call it a package deal or something like that. The highest package deal you can get, I believe you get other like currencies and stuff, as well as your exclusive skin, which I believe it is, and like 500 plat. And that's actually quite a lot of plat, although a lot of people would argue that it's not, especially you players who have played later in the game than I have. I think I've only clocked like 170 something hours, which is a low amount. So like for 500 plat, it only costs like 20 plat in order to just get like an extra slot for another Warframe.
Yeah, so I think like along the lines of that, really, if you're going to spend like a giant amount of money, real world money, to get in-game currency in return, it should be an amount that's going to last you for a while, but not an amount that's going to last you forever, because then that's just stupid, you know. And then it might actually, I guess at that point it depends on how invested you are into the game. If you're so invested that you're going to spend the rest of your life, and I mean every minute of the rest of your life on that game, then maybe the 100 quid's worth it. But I mean, even if you're going to spend like an hour away from it, I still think it would probably be a waste of money anyway, and it would ruin your experience of the game in the first place. But so I think it should be a large amount of money. Something like, I don't want to say 10 grand or whatever the equivalent would be, because I don't know in games like Warframe, I don't know how much the equivalent of 10 grand would actually last you in that game, because I assume not very long.
What are we talking in like how much plat you would get?
So like, I don't know, say, obviously I don't play Warframe, so I don't really know what the currency is or whatever. So let's say if you got whatever the equivalent in Warframe is to 10 grand in-game currency, and then you wanted to go buying yourself weapons and vehicles, if there's vehicles.
There's no vehicles yet. Right. Well, technically, I take that back. Technically, you already are in a vehicle because you start off in your ship.
Well, okay, that much I know.
And you have something called an arc wing, which is essentially, I'm just going to call it angel wings, attached to your back, and you can fly around space and stuff.
But like, for example, you know, if in like pretty much any other, like say any MMO game, right? Say it be Warcraft, say it be Old Republic, say it be Skyrim Online.
Skyrim Online?
What's it called? Stingy Online.
Elder Scrolls Online.
Elder Scrolls Online. It's basically Skyrim Online, so Skyrim Online.
Except your horse just appears.
Other than that, it's Skyrim Online. You know, I mean, the equivalent to 10 grand in that, or 10k, it would last you maybe an hour or two, I think, unless you were to go, I don't know, if you would like to go to just constantly go to all the vendors, get yourself every mount that you've ever wanted, every outfit, buy all the spells that you possibly want.
Spells. No, I think if you spent the equivalent of 10 grand on Warframe, you could probably get every item and also spend the plat to also get that item built within a reasonable time.
Maybe on Warframe, but unlike a lot of other games, for example,
EVE Online,
they would not. That kind of money would it wouldn't last you a day. 10 grand, you'd have that gone within an hour if you just fell into that kind of money. Obviously, if you spent 100 quid on that kind of money, you might make it last a bit longer.
True.
Maybe invest it into something, you know, and get some returns from it.
Returns from a game? That's illegal.
You know, because if you're building your own self economy and everything, you know, you get right players.
Right.
You like say, okay, I'm going to give 500 to you, you're going to turn that into $2,000. I'm going to give 700 to you, you're going to turn that into 50 grand. You've got a much harder job than he does.
Oh, we're talking about just in-game currency and not actually trying to profit off the game.
And then they bring all that money back to you, and you go from then having 10 grand in-game currency to like being a millionaire in-game currency. So that's probably what you should do if you go spending 100 quid to get in real world to get 10 grand in in-game currency. So yeah,
pretty good.
So pretty much overall, should microtransactions be a thing? No. Kinda. Depends on the scenario, really. For AAA games, no. But are they really that big a deal?
Not really.
Not really.
I mean, they're here, and we don't like them. Oh, but a majority of us don't like them.
No.
But like, it's not our place to tell you how to spend your money.
Exactly.
If you've got enough money to comfortably spend on a AAA title as well as an MMO and maybe supporting some indie developers on Patreon or something, go ahead. It's up to your judgment at the end of the day. And if we've influenced you and helped you save some money in the future, that's perfectly fine. But it's only coincidence.
You know, your money, you spend it the way you want, and it's your game. You play it the way you want. So, speaking of games, which we've actually been speaking about for like the last 45 minutes, we'll quickly touch on a note, but we'll probably not stick on it for too long. Question you raised up to me yesterday: should all console games be released on all consoles?
No.
Like no exclusives
including
whatsoever.
PC and Mac, of course.
Yeah, including all of that.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, since you never answered your own question yesterday, what's your thought on that?
In all honesty, I haven't really thought about much.
Right.
From the get-go, I would probably say yes. It's a stupid idea not to do it. It's a stupid idea just to have an exclusive, in my opinion.
Okay.
Other than promotion material for that system that you're releasing on. In my opinion, exclusives should only be developed by whomever has the console at the time.
So you're making an exception to the rule?
No, what I'm saying is, if Microsoft wanted to go ahead and make a new IP and just release it on the Xbox, like Halo, although I think there's Halo games on the PC too.
Well, yeah, Microsoft.
Yeah. So, yeah, if another game, if an in-house developer at Sony or at Microsoft or at Apple, maybe one day, I don't know.
I think they will one day.
I think they're stepping closer towards it.
They are, yes.
Yeah. If an in-house developer wants to develop a game for their system, I have no problem with that whatsoever because it's fair enough promotion material.
So just to clarify, a rule gets implemented that all console games must be released on all consoles,
with the
one exception that in-house studios can make for their own consoles exclusively.
Yeah.
So Sony can make just for the PlayStation, and Microsoft can make just for Xbox, although it would be Xbox and PC. Well, in which case, I mean, it makes my argument a slightly bit more difficult. Because my argument is that, yes, exclusives should be a thing. I think they're a great opportunity for, say, for example, when a new console is coming out, say, when the PS4 was just coming out and the Xbox One was just coming out, it was a great method to sort of help. If you're someone that doesn't really care about the whole console war thing, you don't really care about whether you go PlayStation, whether you go Xbox, you just want the console that's going to play your games and that's going to play them the best, then really at that point it comes down to, okay, what do these consoles have to offer? Because if both are like we have all of the same games to offer, then yes, okay, you have then the free choice of okay, I'll just get whatever one I want. But at the same time, it's like, well, then what's really the difference, other than a home menu, I guess. But if you've got exclusives, you're like, well, okay, yes, that one has this game that looks really good, but this one has these 5 games that look really good, so I'm going to go with this one. It kind of helps you decide, unless, of course, you're on a certain team, and then if you're on, like, say, Team Sony or Team Microsoft, Team PlayStation, Xbox, then it doesn't really matter what the other one says, unless they blow your fucking mind with a game. You're going to go with your home base anyway.
Yeah.
But I do think exclusive should be a thing, especially because we're talking about all consoles, which means we're not just talking about the PlayStation.
No,
we're not just talking about
Atari.
the Xbox,
We're talking about the Jaguar.
Which means I just feel like something like Wii Sports would be very weird to play on the PlayStation or the Xbox.
Fine, you just use the cameras instead.
I don't think it would quite work the same.
Because if it's a case where it's like a game like Wii Sports, then you're not gonna. I don't think even we took it seriously.
Of course they did. That was the main thing they marketed.
No, I mean,
with.
when I say we take it seriously, I'm not talking about like the promotion material for it. I'm talking about the players.
The players.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody be serious about Wii tennis.
What?
Yeah.
That's like a really hardcore sport, dude. It's like for people that don't have the time and money to actually go out to a tennis court and buy a tennis racket and buy a tennis ball, right? And to set up for all that stuff. We know how difficult setup can be, not for tennis, just for everything else. All they need to do, stick on the console, right? 2 Wii remotes, play a game, curveball, smoky. Everyone loves the smoky. Over the net, everything, right? And you got like a pro at it, and especially if you get like over the 100 points mark. I think it's either like a level 100 or 100 points or something like that. You get like, I don't know what you get in the tennis one. I know if it's the bowling one, you get like a bowling ball with stars on them.
Right.
But yeah, like Wii bowling, hardcore sport now. Wii tennis, hardcore sport.
Right.
Like genuine, legit competition. And everything. Just to the same level like Guitar Hero is, where there's like legit competitions on it.
Is that really legit?
Yeah, it's like Premier League.
Really?
Yeah, man. I don't think the boxing one ever really quite got there because it just drained too many people of all the energy that they had in them. Just like, waving their arms around and shit. What else was the golf? Well, even we knew, not we as in us, but we as in Nintendo, even they knew the golf one wasn't really that good because they ended up making a specific golf game to try and try and top it.
But hold on,
there's one other that I can't remember.
We're saying that Wii Sports is really great and stuff, but then Nintendo basically said it's not good enough, and they had to get an add-on for the next one that came along.
For the next console, so that
it was still on the Wii. It was the Motion Plus thing.
Yeah, but for the is it the Wii U or something?
Wii U.
They brought that out to like one up the Wii Sports game, so that this time not only can you play tennis in your living room, but you can see the golf ball on the floor. Yeah, if you've got a Wii U, you can.
Oh, do you put it on the floor?
So you got the gaming device that you, if you will, from the Wii U. You got your television, which will give you your regular like golf pose as your like caricature, and you've got your Wii remote. The Wii remote is your golf club. You watch yourself interact with it on the television screen, and the actual like controller for the Wii U is on the floor, showing you a picture of the golf ball in its club.
That just seems like an excuse to step on it.
So you actually like get to see yourself whack I was going to say tennis ball there, the golf ball. I don't quite know how it would work for tennis because you'd have to like throw it up in the air, and considering the price of it, I wouldn't recommend it. You like throw it up in the air and then try and smash it with a Wii remote.
Well, no. I think although in general terms, I think a tennis ball used as a golf ball would be very entertaining.
Yeah, probably. Probably would.
It would probably either go really far or just break apart immediately.
Well, all that being said, I'm saying I don't think many people would want to, throw the Wii U remote up in the air and then smash it with a regular Wii remote. But a lot of people didn't seem to have a problem doing that with their televisions when the Wii came out. A lot of them just picked up that Wii remote and smashed their television.
wasn't there like an add-on for the Wii controllers where you could have a tennis racket or a piece of plastic?
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They made like wheels for like Mario Kart and stuff, which I actually ended up getting.
I played.
Did play, yeah. They made tennis rackets. They made guns.
Yeah.
They had their own version of a lightsaber, I'm sure, but it wasn't called a lightsaber.
There's like the Batman thing for, the Bat thing for...
Because they had a Star Wars game that they weren't legally allowed to call Star Wars, so they had to change the name of the lightsaber as well to something else. I can't remember what it was like. I don't think it was even as simple as light sword. It was like bright sword, or I don't know, something
torch
like
sword,
plasma sword, or some crap. Like
plasma sword actually counts cool.
It does.
It counts cool, people.
So, I think they had a game like that. So they had loads of different like add-ons, which at the end of the day you never really needed.
Yeah.
I guess unless you want the right posture for things, but for most things like a tennis racket or for like a lightsaber or something that you just hold in like one hand, you didn't really need that add-on for it. Something like a wheel, I can understand. Something even like a gun, I can understand, because the way you'd hold it is very different. So for that, I can kind of get it, but for all the other stuff, it was just kind of stupid and just really gimmicky.
Yeah,
which is probably why the Wii never quite made it to being the same level
as the iToy.
As the iToy. That's exactly what I was going to say. How many of the iToy games did you play?
3.
You played all 3 of them?
All 3.
I don't think I ever played the first one.
Did you not?
No. I played iToy 2 and iToy 3.
Oh, wait, yeah, because at one point I had an iToy myself.
Right.
Yeah, and I had the first iToy game. I don't remember much of it, but I remember 2 and 3 were our favourites. Wait, sorry, was it 3? Because we could pretend to be, what's his name? The Human Torch.
The Human Torch. I think we loved 3 because you could be the Human Torch in that. But I think 2 was my favourite just for the burger game. Yeah. You had to like make the patties and make all the burgers and send them out.
Yeah. Wait, no, wasn't our favourite the Kung Fu one?
The Kung Fu one was good. Yeah. I'll give it that. But I think the burger one was definitely my favourite.
Right.
That and obviously the one that was just like the room where you could change yourself, where you'd have to step out the room so you could scan the background and then walk in and it would change anything new in the frame. That was something special. But you see, if all games had been released to all consoles, you imagine them trying to do the bloody iToy stuff with Xbox's Kinect. That would go down like atrocity.
I don't know. I mean, the Kinect isn't a brilliant piece of hardware when it comes to using it on the Xbox, but people have modded it to do really cool things.
Like, the Kinect is pretty good for pretty much anything except what Microsoft built it for.
You can even turn an Xbox camera into, what was it, like a pair of proper 3D glasses. Or use it in the same vein as 3D glasses.
I think what is actually awesome about the Kinect is that you can use it for like motion tracking.
That's it.
So you can do like mocap and stuff with it and make like a CGI character that will literally follow your exact movements. That's brilliant. But for some reason, it can't do a game of bowling on the Xbox.
And technically we could complain about Sony having the same problem because they had to include the controllers that had the ball in the end.
Well, yeah, but they were going. I don't think that was a bad idea for them because they were looking at what Xbox did, and then they looked at what Nintendo did with the Wii, and they were like, Nintendo did it better. So let's take the Nintendo approach. We've already done what Xbox is trying to do now with iToy. Yes, theirs is slightly more advanced to a degree, but it's less responsive than the iToy. But the Wii is the most interactive, really, out of all of the options. So if people want that experience on our console, we'll go that route instead of the Kinect. Xbox themselves knew that the Kinect was a big flop because they don't force you to buy that with Xboxes anymore. Which they did like 3 years ago.
It used to be a proprietary, didn't it?
Yeah, when the Xbox One first came out, you had to get a Kinect with it.
Yeah.
Because they even try to implement all the stuff like facial recognition with it. Like you could start it with the Kinect, and it's basically meaning the Kinect was watching you 24/7.
Wasn't there facial recognition on the iToy?
To a degree,
yeah.
Not to an extent where you could unlock, like, log into your account or something with it. But I think even Sony's PlayStation camera now has the ability to log into your account just through facial recognition.
Yeah.
So it's not that unique anymore.
Just wait until you have to have a thumb scanner on your consoles. Although that would be kind of cool.
Well, considering that PlayStation's buttons are touchscreen these days, or touch sensitive these days anyway, that wouldn't really surprise us if like you could activate something like that. Although, it's like, you want to log into this account, just pop your thumbprint.
I think there needs to be like some kind of backup just in case the thumb scanner isn't working.
Oh yeah, well you'd have like your whole username and password thing, but have it so that the thumbprint itself, like what a lot of phones do now, will actually put the password in for you.
Yeah.
So if it's the correct thumbprint, the password will automatically be put in. And obviously, if the thumbprint fails, then you just type the password in and log into your account nonetheless. So, yeah.
Indeed.
Well, it feels weird, especially considering what we're used to. But because it doesn't feel like we've been going for that long on this, but we're already pretty much at the end of this.
Well, let's wrap up what we're talking about right now, because I don't think we've actually come to the conclusion yet.
Okay. Before we do, we will conclude, as is the rule. Right. My personal opinion, should all console games, well, not just nothing there. You might say that. Should they be released on all consoles? No, I don't think that it should. I think that it gives you some variety, and I think there's a lot of console where I agree with you. If it was the case, the home studios should essentially be able to release on their own consoles. But at the same time, I think it gives the consoles more variety to do that with like other game companies to be able to have the exclusive on them. It gives you more incentive to get that specific game. And so I think it gives you more variety, and I think some games would turn out disastrous if they were allowed on the other consoles. Just look at some of the regular games that ended up going to the Wii when they came out. They're like bloody awful versions of the normal game.
Yeah, but I don't think they were ever trying to be the original game, which is good.
Because I tried to get into Resident Evil once. And I started with Resident Evil 4, a game that a lot of people say is a really good Resident Evil game. And my first experience with it was on the Wii, because I had the Wii version of it. And I kind of had the assumption I didn't like Resident Evil to begin with. That solidified it for us. I was like, I do not like Resident Evil whatsoever. Yeah. Probably because I played the Wii version of that game. But that game is pretty much identical to the other console versions, with the exception of you pretty much control your gun via the Wii remote, so you don't actually like turn your camera or anything, which was really annoying and frustrating. So I think for similar cases like that, the same would apply vice versa, the other way around, where some of the games would just be bloody horrible if they tried to put it on. So personally, I don't think they should have like I never think every game should just go to one console, but I think exclusives should be a thing.
Okay. All right, and then I will adjust my original thing and say, in taking consideration all games that have been released, including games on the Wii and whatnot, if it's appropriate to stick on another console, unless you're Microsoft or Sony, stick on another console.
Actually, I do have one more point to add into this, which I completely forgot about. Because we're saying all console games on all consoles.
Right.
I'm going to take that literally.
Okay.
It would probably be very difficult for your PlayStation 1 to run a brand new PS4 game, or even an Xbox One game.
No, because all you'd have to do is just reduce it so much that it's just a bunch of pixels. Imagine playing Skyrim and it looked like Doom.
There's probably something out already to make Skyrim look like Doom.
I haven't seen anything. Or at least nothing that's come to light.
It wouldn't surprise us, to be honest with you.
I would actually probably enjoy a
to be honest
pixely.
with you, I think even if you like compress the shit out of a game like Skyrim, I still think something like the very first PlayStation, or even going before the very first PlayStation, those consoles would not stand a chance if you wanted to play that game. It would literally just be like 6 pixels on. You'd have to compress it to such an extent that you'd only see 6 pixels on the screen.
It's easy. You just make it a text-based adventure game.
Then you have to make an entirely new game.
It would be, but it would be a lot of reading. Do you want to go forward? Do you want to go forward? Do you want to go forward? I'm still like 500 miles away from Solitude. Although, then again, if it was a text-based game, they could probably take some liberties and add, like, do you want to save the Stormcloaks? Do you want to kill Ulfric? Kill him right now. Okay, he's dead. I don't want to kill Ulfric. He's my favourite.
Right, but then, going by the same logic, then, one, they still have to release a compressed version of Skyrim on the original PlayStation. Right. And now you're saying they also have to make a text-based version of it, which just because they wanted to put the game on the original PlayStation so that you could somehow get the same experience. But now they also have to release that text-based game on the first Xbox, on the PS2, 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, the PS Pro.
Wait.
This one text-based game, just for the PS1, now has to go on every console.
I've got the fix. I've got the exact fix. All you do is you put up So say if it was on a cartridge system, all you would have to do is put in the code, and then technically you do have the game. It might not be able to run, but you have the code for that exact game.
Right, but then it wouldn't have been released for all consoles, would it?
Well, you can do. You just put all the code on every console and just make sure you can display it.
I'm just clarifying this because, the question is, should they be released for all consoles? Yeah. So I'm just, bringing up the flaws in if they decided to do this. I think it wouldn't go so well.
Well, it might not sell very well.
I think a lot of consoles would break that day.
Maybe.
Probably.
Maybe.
Especially if you end up forgetting which console you actually got the game for because you're one of the stupid people that, puts the game in one case and then that game goes in another case and it just keeps repeating. And if you pick that game, I was like, I think this one's for the PS2. And then, you go stick in your PS2, but it was actually in for, Xbox 7650 XG Series 1.
Well, don't they usually have the console name on the disc?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Not anymore.
No?
Not in your world. Not in your world, they don't.
What do you mean, not my world?
Not in your world, they don't.
They don't?
No.
Wow.
Not if they're being released for all consoles.
Well, yeah, but you would put it on the disc.
Not anymore.
Because
they don't see the point anymore.
Oh?
No. Because they're we're just going to release it for all consoles, so we'll just print off one picture to stick on my discs, and we'll stick it on all the console discs, and the only way you're going to know which console it's for is by keeping it in the correct case.
I think you took the original thing a little too literally.
No, I said I was going to take this as literal as possible. So,
right, okay.
There you go.
Well, I think that...
You didn't put any limitations on the question.
Is it? It is a question.
Yes.
Although since it's got a full stop or a what do the Americans call it? A period.
Yes.
Yeah.
A period.
It's got a period. Since it hasn't got a question mark. Therefore, it makes it a statement.
So, should all console games be released on all consoles? It's kind of hard to say as a statement. It still sounds like a question.
We can't even answer it. It's a statement.
Yeah. The answer's already there.
Actually, that's probably a good answer. Should they?
Should they? Yeah. That is the question.
And the answer is 42.
42. Unless you're talking about audio. Then 17.
It would be 18 now, wouldn't it?
No, because we only did the one. We never really did another one after that. Okay. We just went to the official thing.
Right.
So yeah, everyone, that's been All Directions Podcast. The very first video episode and the first one of us back in a long time.
Yeah.
hopefully that will be recurring. Not the long pause, but like the recurring weekly thing.
Oh, there's something else to celebrate.
Yes?
It's the first time your face has been on YouTube for years.
For years.
For years.
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 The audio maybe before years, but
so much that I didn't even know what he said. But you know, what you gonna do?
Oh.
But yeah, so you know, yada yada. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Comment, all that stuff.
If you see a comment that you like that comment. If you see a comment that you hate, I don't know.
There's a dislike button, I think.
Yeah.
So just, you know, hit all the buttons.
All the buttons.
All the buttons.
Twice, 3 times.
5 times. To be specific.
Maybe 7.
Yeah, unless you regret one, then unclick and then click the other one.
Or maybe if you haven't second thoughts, maybe you come back to it in the next day and you're like,
Oh, and the subscribe one as well, but that's within the other buttons, so just, you know, still click it.
There's also apparently a bell icon now that you have to press in order to get notified.
Apparently you have to press it. I don't know about that. So I know about the icon itself, but I don't really know its function.
Although technically you are notified that someone's uploaded something because there's usually a number in your subscription.
I mean, you really should be notified anyway just because you click the subscribe button.
Yeah.
Camera's just going. It's just going.
All right.
Right, you guys.